Welcome to The Explainer. You know, every glass of beer you've ever had begins its life not with a hop or even with yeast, but with a single, humble grain of barley. Today we're going to tell the story of how that seed starts an absolutely incredible transformation, all to unlock the potential hidden deep inside.
Okay, so let's jump right into the fundamental problem every brewer faces. To make alcohol, the yeast, well, it needs to eat. And it eats simple sugars. But our main ingredient, barley, is just packed to the brim with starch, which is this complex carbohydrate that yeast just can't digest. You can think of starch as a pantry that's locked up tight. All the sugar molecules are in there for sure, but they're all chained together and protected. So the brewer's first and maybe most important job is to figure out how to find the key to that pantry.
So why barley? I mean, really, there are tons of starchy grains out there. You've got wheat, rice, corn, but barley has this unique set of qualifications that makes it the undisputed champion, the absolute star of the brewing world. Just look at its resume. It is practically perfect for the job. And it's not just one thing, it's everything all at once. It's got this massive starch reserve. Its husk acts as a built-in filter later on. It's full of the vitamins and minerals that yeast needs to be happy and healthy. And it's low in these oils that can totally ruin a beer's foam. It's pretty much a self-contained brewing kit in a tiny little package.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. That amazing starch isn't just sitting there for the taking. Oh no, it's locked inside a microscopic fortress. The starch granules are stuck in this protein matrix, and then the whole thing is surrounded by these gummy cell walls. It's basically double-locked.
And that brings us to the first bit of real magic in brewing, this clever, centuries-old process called malting. This is where the maltster, the person doing this, essentially tricks the barley seed into unlocking its own pantry.
The whole thing plays out like a three-act play. First, you gotta wake the grain up. Then, you let it start building the tools it needs to get the job done. And finally, right at the perfect moment, you slam on the brakes and stop the whole process.
So Act 1 is steeping. You can think of it like a spa day for the barley. It gets soaked in water a few times, and this whole process mimics spring rain. It raises the moisture inside the grain to around 45% and basically tells the dormant seed, hey, wake up, it's time to grow.
Next up is germination, and this, right here, is where the real work gets done. As the seed starts to grow, it produces this whole collection of enzymes. These enzymes are the biological keys we've been talking about, the natural tools designed specifically to dissolve those gummy cell walls and break down that protein matrix.
And this super important breakdown process, it has a name. Modification. It's the word maltsters use to describe how completely that internal fortress has been dismantled by the enzymes, freeing up all that starch. And let me tell you, controlling this is a true art form. Now this is how malting directly affects the beer that ends up in your glass. A lightly modified or under-modified malt is perfect for those crisp, clean lagers. But a well-modified malt, where the breakdown is much more extensive, that forms the rich, biscuity base for traditional ales. The process itself is already building the foundation for the beer's style.
Okay, finally, we have kilning. Just when the enzymes have done their job, but before the little seed uses up all that precious starch for its own growth, the maltster hits the emergency brake. Heat gets applied, which dries the grain out, stops the germination cold, preserves those enzymes, and toasts the grain to develop all sorts of amazing flavors, from light biscuit all the way to rich coffee.
All right, so now let's move from the malt house over to the brewery and see how this all comes together for the grand finale. The barley is now malted, its starch is accessible, it's finally time to make some sugar. This is the moment of truth. In a process called mashing, the now crushed malt is mixed with hot water. This creates this sort of porridge-like mixture, and guess what? It reactivates the very enzymes that were created during germination. They get right back to work, snipping those long starch chains into smaller, simple sugars that the yeast can finally eat. Now, brewers control this with unbelievable precision because different enzymes work best at different temperatures. A rest at a lower temperature, for example, encourages protein breakdown, which can affect the beer's body and foam. But the main event, the big show, is the starch conversion. That happens at a higher temperature, right around 65 degrees Celsius. After about an hour, the job is done. The starch is gone, the liquid is drained away from the grain husks, and what you're left with is this amazing, sweet, sugary liquid called wort. This is the foundation. This is what will soon become beer. And this is so crucial to understand. This whole process doesn't just create sugar. It creates the very soul of the beer itself. The character, the color, and so much of the flavor, it's all born from the malt.
Think about it. Just by changing the temperature and the timing of that final kilning stage, maltsters can create this huge spectrum of specialty malts. And every single one has a unique flavor to contribute.
And this right here, this is exactly why your beer looks and tastes the way it does. That little bit of crystal malt, that's what gives an ale its reddish color and those toffee notes. That highly roasted barley, that's what gives a stout its signature black color and coffee flavor. It all comes back to how that first grain was malted.
You know, it really is this perfect marriage of agricultural science and human taste. For centuries, brewers have just used the materials they had on hand to make beers that people in their area liked. And that's what led to the thousands of different beer styles we get to enjoy today.
So after all that, what's the one thing you should really take away from this?
Remember this number, 60 to 65%. That's how much of a single barley corn's weight is pure starch. It's this massive store of potential energy, a locked pantry that can only be opened through the elegant, controlled, and frankly, brilliant process of malting.
Before a single hop ever gets near the kettle, before the yeast even enters the picture, this fundamental transformation from inaccessible starch to fermentable sugar has to happen. It's the invisible, ingenious first step that truly makes beer possible.
So, we have successfully unlocked the pantry. We have created the sugar. But the story of beer, oh, it is far from over. Thanks for joining us for this